Van Morrison is so good. That's one you may not have heard. Veed & Fleece, 1974. Carol, you know I like the 70s. You know, the music was pretty good, Carol says. I'll tell you what was pretty good in the 70s. My testosterone levels were off the charts in the early 70s. Gosh, Carol, you think that has anything to do with why I think the music of the early 70s is really good? Huh? What do you think, monkeys? It's when you hit puberty, right? That's the best music ever, right? Yeah, when you're in your 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever, and you kids, you will get nostalgic. Oh, I don't even want to hear it. Don't laugh at us. You will get nostalgic, kids, for the music that first hit you when the hormones was raging through your body. Oh, best music ever. Although, to be honest, Carol, I never heard that album until I was in my 40s. But it has, Carol says, it echoes. It has echoes of the Van Morrison we know and love. And here's the thing, kids. Kids. Listen. Dropping science. Listen. The songs you listen to over and over and over and over and over and over and over again that you love, damn. Stop that. Go find something just 2 steps sideways. Oh, this is like, okay, the band I love and I listen to their albums over and over and over and over and over again, they say this album's good, so I listen to this album, but these people say this album's really good. Ooh, that's how you listen to music, kids. You don't just listen to the same thing over and 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 over again. You explore. Classic example, Carol, what's a classic example? Deadheads. They only listen to the Grateful Dead. I like the Grateful Dead. But I got to tell you something, if the Grateful Dead only listened to the Grateful Dead, they wouldn't have been the Grateful Dead. They listen to blues, they listen to jazz, they listen to country, they listen to bluegrass. Come on, monkeys, expand your horizons. Okay, so I went to the Moral Monday protest, Carol.
Yes, and I have it ready.
We have footage. Now listen, I got a bone to pick first. Okay, first of all, 2 things, 2 announcements. 2 announcements. 2 announcements. 2 announcements, monkeys. Number 1. Notice, Carol, I didn't do the second finger first. Number 1. First announcement. June 3rd is the next Moral Monday. They're skipping this week because it's the holiday. Are you going rafting, Carol?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going down the Neuse River in like inner tubes with big inner tubes filled with beer. Yay. Yeah, it is the Neuse, right? We're doing the Neuse. I forget. The river's all blur with the beer. Okay, so this Monday's a holiday. This is point 1. This Monday's a holiday. So go, find something good to do outdoors. And June 3rd, though, the Monday after this Monday, right? They're doing another Moral Monday protest. It was so much fun this week. You'll see. We got the footage, right, Carol? All right, she's ready. So here's the thing, though. Every week, I've gone twice now, they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But damn, here, look at this. Here's the NNO story. Moral Monday protests. Moral Monday arrests continue. You see that? Moral Monday. But Ann Blythe, I like you. You're a good reporter. She didn't even try to estimate the crowd. Didn't even try. Not even an estimate, just the arrests. They always do this. They're scared. They don't want to accept the police estimates anymore because they know that we've convinced them that's garbage. You don't just accept the police crowd estimates. I'm sorry. I respect the police, but reporters should not just accept police crowd estimates. They should do an estimate themselves. And Carol, they march in 2 by 2. I counted.
Easily counted.
540 people at least protesting outside the legislature. That includes the 50 or so who were arrested. I counted. I stood there and counted as they walked in. Why can't the NNO do a crowd estimate that's worth a crap? Huh? Why? All right. So anyway, it was a lot of fun and very exciting. And here's some footage. The crowd keeps growing at the protests in front of the legislative building. There it is. Damn them to hell.
It's about community. It's about love and justice being more powerful than oppression and wrong and injustice. The scripture says, inasmuch as you do to the least of these, you've done it unto me.
Amen.
That's equal protection. Isaiah 10 calls for affirmative action whenever equal protection is not done, because it says, doom unto those, Isaiah 10, who legislate evil and rob the poor of their rights. The Constitution in North Carolina says that life, liberty, the fruit of your own labor, and the pursuit of happiness is a right. It says that all North Carolinians are guaranteed equal protection under the law. And the 14th Amendment says that anybody born or naturalized must be guaranteed equal protection under law.
Right.
So when this state legislature cuts 500,000 poor people from Medicaid, and then wants to privatize Medicaid, when this legislature wants to cut money for public education and give money to private schools and turn our public schools money into a business for those who want to make good wealthy, and they know it's going to hurt the poor, not poor blacks, but poor whites, poor Latino, poor period. That's not equal protection under the law.
No.
That's fundamentally inconsistent, and it's morally indefensible.
Amen.
When in this state, we see 165,000 people denied unemployment in this state. In a state where our Constitution says we have a right to the fruit of our labor. And when they want to deny workers' rights and labor's rights, that is a violation of the principle of equal protection under the law. It's morally indefensible and constitutionally inconsistent.
Amen.
In this state, when we see legislators who want to use their supermajority to overrun the priorities of the Constitution and raise taxes on 900,000 working poor people so they can give 23 people a tax cut, that's against the law. That does not measure up. And if they're doing it because it's deliberate, or if they're doing it because they're naive, either way is wrong.
That's right.
That's right.
Wrong. And I don't believe it's naive. It's premeditated cruelty. It's an attempt to use your political power to overrun the great principles of our Constitution and our scriptures. And maybe they didn't think North Carolina would stand up. Maybe they thought they could make this just a black issue because the NAACP is involved. But somebody better tell them they better understand that red, yellow, black, and white all over this state, we decided to wake up. Somebody say, wake up! Stand up! Stand up! Wake up! Stand up! Stand up! Forward together! Not one step back! Not one step back! When we see them raising taxes on poor folk, but cutting corporate taxes and cutting personal income taxes and expanding the taxes. Come here, baby. And expanding taxes on food and haircuts and hairdos and prescription drugs. That's not equal protection. That's unequal policies. Those are policies that violate everything about freedom and justice and doing right. And so in this moment, we are called to be a witness. We know there's a better way. This legislature is taking us down a road backwards. We must take a stand to go forward. They're making it harder for children to get educated. They're making it harder for the sick to get health care. They're making it harder for working people to make it in this world. But they're making it easier for folk to die for the lack of health insurance. 50 years ago, there was a movement in Mississippi, and there was a movement in Birmingham. And before Medgar was shot, he said, you can kill a person, but you can't kill an idea. And one thing we know, since this is the Monday after Pentecost Sunday, something happens when people are stirred in their spirit. Something happening when there's a rumbling in the spirit. Something happens when people decide that they can't take no more. Something happens when people are going to stand up. And in my tradition, my grandma used to say, when things got tough, she'd say, I pray that something runs from heart to heart and breast to breast. I want to ask all y'all to be Pentecostal for a minute. Touch your neighbor and say, I feel something. Moving from heart to heart and breast to breast. And it feels like a movement. Right here in North Carolina. And so as we go today, we want to form one long aisle. The people who are going in, we ask them to come always to Davis Street first. If you are deciding, don't just hop in the line, let us know. They're going to go in first, then you can follow. We want to go 2 by 2, don't bunch up. Don't bunch up. You go inside, you're not going to engage in civil disobedience in your own free will and accord. Then when the officers ask you to leave, we just leave quietly, come back, go around the back, and we're going to wait for people to come out, and some of us are going to be over there. It's strange to me anyway that conservatives who are already talking about prayer will arrest us for praying in the General Assembly. And I wish you all would tell somebody beside you, love and justice has never lost.
Love and justice has never lost.
It might get crucified. It might get beat down. But at the end of the day, when the game is over and the dust settles, justice and love always win. So get your head up. It's time to walk. It's time to march. It's time to say forward together. Forward together. One step back. No, one step back. Forward together.
Teacher Mom, let me go.
Now they're going to march around the legislative building to where the buses are waiting to take the people to prison. Look at this crowd.
If I sound like I'm crying because it's so freaking humid out here.
All right, thank you, Carol, for editing that down. It really bothers me that Ann Blythe of the News and Observer couldn't be bothered to tell folks that what's actually happening with numbers. I've been there now for 2 weeks. Skipped last week when they grew even more from the first week, and it went from 3 weeks ago to about 140 people, I think is what I counted as people, and they marched 2 by 2 right into the legislative building, so you can stand there and count. It's very easy to do. You don't have to take the word of anybody from the government or the legislative staff or the security people. You can sit there and count. And I counted 56 people going in to get arrested. It turned out to be 57. And then 490 people, supporters, coming in to support them, right? That's huge compared to what it was last week and the week before. So the arc, this is what's missing when people like Ann Blythe and the News and Observer staff don't bother to do crowd estimates. It's not even an estimate. You can actually freaking count them. The arc of the protests is going like this. They're skipping next week. June 3rd is the next big one. And the thing I like about this protesting, Carol, this is me being middle class. This is me being in my safe middle class bubble. They're really relatively low risk protests, They need better chants. I'm going to come up with a few better chants, Carol. We got to come up with new better chants, Something rhyme with Tillis. You know, we got to come up with something because I'm tired of the same old chants. But that's okay. Even if you, as a person who used to be active, or maybe you're a person who's new thinking about being active, and we'll get to the reasons to be active in a second. But do you really need them? Okay, we'll spell them out because a lot of people are saying, I'm not real clear. They've got all these issues, and that's part of the problem. There are so many reasons to protest. But here's the thing. It's relatively low risk. They're very organized. If you want to get arrested, you don't have to. If you want to get arrested, connect up with the NAACP. I'm going to try to find a specific email you can contact. But they're online, North Carolina NAACP. And they go to a church on Davie Street, and they meet up beforehand, and they make sure everyone's got an orientation for getting arrested. Make sure you've got bail ready, you know, so nobody's going to rot in jail or anything. It's all very organized. And then they go in there, and there's protesting and praying. And you saw the crowd in the balcony above. It was much bigger than it was when I was there 2 weeks ago. There was only one ring of people around there. Now it was like 4 or 5 people deep. And June 3rd, we want it to be even deeper. Now, it's the least you can do, it seems to me. It's low risk. You can support people who are taking the risk of getting arrested, and you know, there's young people, old people, black, white, Hispanic, Asian. There were all kinds of people there. You saw them. It was also really kind of fun. I hate to say it, but you're making them uncomfortable. And at one point, Reverend Barber was very clear. Some of the chanting started getting aimed at the security forces, the police officers that were there in the legislative building. And Reverend Barber stopped it and said, you know, they're not the enemy. We want to talk to the legislators. We want to talk to Tom Tillis. We want to talk to all the people making these laws. Okay, so real quick, Carol, real quick. Everybody's going to have different reasons. They're just now starting to go after abortion monkeys. They're just now starting to go after abortion. In the new budget, they've got $250,000. They're cutting kids out of pre-kindergarten programs. Instead of being over the federal poverty line, and you know that federal poverty line limit is low for eligibility for some of these programs for poor kids. They're cutting that in North Carolina. We were above it, they're cutting it. That means, the only thing that means is in the name of saving money, they are gonna stop serving poor children programs in North Carolina, pre-kindergarten programs, right? They're gonna cut them. While they're giving a tax break to the people at the top. Tom Tillis likes to talk about how this is the biggest tax cut in North Carolina history. No, it's not. All they're doing is cutting personal income taxes for some. But you've seen their own site, the NNO reported this, their own site, the Republican Party's own site. Tom Tillis' own site for calculating how your taxes would be different in North Carolina shows that the average family would pay more. But of average family making 30,000, people making 30,000, whatever, you know, two income households, the average middle class family in North Carolina, when you combine all the increased sales taxes and taxes on services, we can laugh at Reverend Barber singling out hairdos as a new service and haircuts that was going to be that's going to have sales taxes, you know, on it and increased, right? So you're going to pay more for those services. We can laugh at Reverend Barber with his talking about hairdos, but the point, he makes a solid point. He makes a solid point. These are taxes that are going up on poor people. The GOP's own calculate your tax cut calculator online says that the average middle class family is going to see their taxes go up, but the average family making over $100,000 or $200,000 is going to see their taxes go down. That is the environment that we're living in today. When Reverend Barber talked about the 900,000 people versus the 23 families, 900,000 people see their taxes go up in North Carolina, 23 of the wealthiest families in North Carolina see their taxes go down. That's getting rid, that's McCrory and Tom Tillis and the Senate getting rid of the earned income tax credit. You get a couple $1,000s of a credit when you're doing your taxes, right? Most of us have done this recently. You get a couple $1,000s of an earned income tax credit, and that reduces the amount that you pay taxes on. For most people, that's a significant chunk. most poor people. They're getting rid of that so that most poor people in North Carolina, 900,000 people who filed last year, will pay more, I guess is what I'm saying, will pay more taxes next year because of that. 900,000 people at the bottom who use this earned income tax credit will pay more next year. And Tom Tillis is calling this the biggest tax cut in North Carolina history. 900,000 people will pay more last year because of that move. And they're the people at the bottom. Meanwhile, 23 families get their taxes cut at the top with the estate tax. It's the estate tax, right, Carol? I think it's the estate tax. I'm sorry, I worked all day today. Give me a break. And I got to work all day tomorrow, too. But it's okay. I like my work. Yeah, the 20, I'm sorry, I should have known that. The 23 families at the top, by cutting the estate tax, I think that's what it is. There's 23 families that will be affected, and they get their taxes cut. 23 families in North Carolina get a tax cut because of that, while 900,000 get a tax increase. What kind of country is this? What kind of state is this? What kind of government do we have? Next, the renewable energy law. This was a sensible law in North Carolina that said by 2022, Duke Energy, Duke Progress, whatever the hell they're called now, have to have a certain percentage, I think it was 12%, maybe it's 18% of their energy generated by renewable sources. They freak out over renewables. You see the attack on the Tesla that they just passed. They're protecting automobile dealerships. They claim that they're free market capitalists, but they're not. They're just as corrupt as Jim Black. They're doing everything that Jim Black did, helping their friends, crushing democracy. Jim Black was just like that, crushing democracy and stifling debate. That's exactly what they're doing. The renewable energy law was passed in 2007, I believe, and it put modest requirements on energy, made the big energy companies in North Carolina to start getting more of a small percentage, but a growing percentage of their energy from renewable sources. Meanwhile, Sharon Harris has a big crack in it, Carol. The first day, that didn't even make the front page of the N&O. NC Warren has been right again. NC Warren's got some serious questions about, well, what happened? See, because Progress and / Duke, whatever, they made a report about this crack, and now the regulatory agency, the Nuclear Regulatory Agency, is saying, that report really wasn't accurate. We need to go back and do a new report and look at this information again. So we're not being protected properly by Duke / Progress, right? Shocker. The first day this hit, the N&O, I'm pretty sure it was on page B1. I'm like, really? There's a freaking crack in the nuclear power plant 10 miles down the road, and that's B1 news? Oh, okay. They've since, upped it a little bit. But anyway, is that we're that close? Wow. But here's the thing. The renewable energy law was passed with Duke, on board and claiming they're all greenwashing themselves, because they're claiming, oh yeah, we're supporting this, right? Duke hasn't said a thing about the repeal. They're trying to repeal it. Here's the key. There have been a bunch of business promises made to small companies in a lot of these small states, or small counties, in North Carolina, that actually are headed by Republicans now, represented by Republicans, and they were against the repeal of this modest requirement for renewable energy resources in North Carolina. Republicans were against it. The committee vote happened by voice, and the head of the committee, in a complete Jim Black move. Can we get the Jim Black thing up again? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, no, the other one. The other one's better. Rabon, right? Is that his name? Yeah. He sat there knowing he didn't have the votes to pass the repeal out of his committee, which means it couldn't go to the larger Senate, right? He knew he didn't have the votes, so he calls for a voice vote, yeas versus nays, passes. WRAL, which again, at least online, is doing much better coverage of the legislative session than the N&O is online. Again, much better coverage. WRAL went and found all the people and counted the votes because Rabon wouldn't do it. It didn't pass. It did not, the repeal of the renewable energy law did not pass out of committee. And yet it passed out of committee with Rabon's jerky Jim Black move. It didn't have the votes to pass. It failed. Rabon passed it anyway on a vague voice vote. Okay, it passes. That's how they operate. That's worth protesting on June 3rd. That's just 2. If I had another half hour, I could give you 10 more. They're coming after abortion next. 250,000 in the new budget. I mentioned this earlier, but I didn't finish the thought. For these crisis pregnancy centers, these Christian anti-abortion centers, they're liars. They don't give the truth about abortion. They're coming after abortion next, June 3rd at the legislature.